Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and borrowing again from The Right Stuff, the line about test pilots and nobody knew their names, I'm going to tell you about Ted Sturmthal. You probably never heard of this guy. This is an amazing tale of determination and a pilot who died way too young. But he was an amazing guy, and I want to tell you about him because I think people should know about him and guys like him, and that's why I'm doing a number of these type of recordings. Now, the first flight of the B-1 occurred on December 23rd, 1974. And Charlie Bach was in the left seat, aircraft commander position, because he was the company test pilot. And Emil, this is his official name, he always went by Ted Sturmthal, was in the right seat, and they performed this first flight. Now, Ted was the Joint Test Force program director. So he's the head guy on this program. And he's just an amazing individual. So I'm going to chase him on a B-1 test mission. So you need to brief these missions, of course, and the test force is scattered at one north end of location. I'm down in test ops, so I need to have a briefing with him. So I go up to the B-1 Joint Test Force and go in there, and I come into his office. Very nice office, being the program director, and we talk about it. It was a high-speed, low-altitude SRAM launch, and I'm going to be his chase pilot. So I come in there, and now I'm a first lieutenant, and given the type of people they had out there, I'm very inexperienced as far as flight time. Now, most of the people that were in test ops and they used for chase pilots were graduates of the Air Force Test Pilot School who were in test ops waiting to get assigned to some sort of test program. So they're just available to do chase missions. My job in current ops in the command post is a flying position, and because of that, I'm in a pilot slot, and I get to fly chase, which is a great privilege. So most of the people who end up chasing these missions, they're either captains or majors, and I come in there as a first lieutenant. So I'm sure that kind of got his attention. And I've flown chase with a lot of program managers, and a lot of these programs, especially the B-1, was under a lot of political pressure. They don't cut you any slack. You perform or you're in trouble. I mean, you could be banned from a program probably for life if you screwed up. I don't know that really ever happened to anybody out there, but, I had to be on my best behavior and do a good job. But we're sitting down there and we're talking. And we get done with the briefing, and we just, and I mean, for a guy who's a program manager, take the time with essentially somebody who was a nobody, which was, in my position at the time, just to sit there and chat was amazing. And I happened to notice on his bookcase there, he had an XB-70-1, flight manual. And I'm going, wow, you flew the XB-70? And he goes, yeah, and he starts telling me tales about that. And then I also notice there is a B-58-1 up there. Well, that was quite interesting. He had flown that also. He'd actually been a combat pilot in the Korean War. He flew the B-26, and he has a lot of air medals and prestigious things. But we started talking, and he related to me that it was a very hard road for him to get not only to be a test pilot, but to even be a pilot. He had, and he wore glasses. He had a very serious vision problem at the time. He started flying at the age of 15 in a Cub and with the Civil Air Patrol. And he wore thick glasses, and at the time, you didn't get in the Air Force. He wanted to be a test pilot, but you didn't get in the Air Force with thick glasses on. That just didn't occur. Well, talk about determination. He would try to pass the eye tests. He would do these exercises, and he says, there were times when he had just in his car had to pull off the side of the road and stop because he had such bad headaches. But he was determined he was going to get to be an Air Force pilot. So what he did was he got in his airplane and he flew to Washington, D.C., and he met with General Vandenberg. Yeah, that General Vandenberg that the base is named after. And he got a waiver. He convinced the general. That's how strong and determined Ted was. He convinced General Vandenberg to let him get a waiver to go to Air Force pilot training, even though he wore glasses. And he was the first one to go through Air Force pilot training wearing glasses. So that was a pretty amazing tale. And we just had the nicest chat, which was amazing for a guy in his position and stature just to talk to, this lowly chase pilot. So and the neat thing is I've got copies of B-58-1 I got from him, the flight manual, and also the XB-70 flight manual. Now he, we after work, the pilots would gather at the officers' club, and all the pilots would kind of congregate, and he would sit there and just be talking, and he, somebody mentioned something about supersonic flight, and he goes, "Well, when I flew the Concorde, and the whole place would just go quiet." Some of these guys had stories, and of course, Fitz Fulton also had flown the Concorde, so you could sit in the O Club, and there would be just amazing stories being told, and of course, I talk about the XB-70 crash, which occurred in June of '66. The last XB-70 was flown to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base with Fitz Fulton and Ted. They were the last pilots. And of course, it sat outside at the Air Force Museum quite a while. It finally was brought inside, but this is just an absolutely beautiful aircraft. And it was flown out to Wright-Patterson, the museum out there, by Fitz Fulton and Ted Sturmthal on for February 1969. I was a freshman in college at the time, just started dating the woman who would become my future wife of 52 years. But it would be really interesting to be on an aircraft that you're flying to a museum and know that this is the last flight of this aircraft, and a very historic and beautiful aircraft, and you guys are the ones who are going to put it away. Fitz signed the logbook, closed it out, handed it to the curator of the museum, and now it's kept in the archives, and that was the final flight of the aircraft. Now, unfortunately for Ted died at a very young age of 53, and he died of skin cancer. He had retired from the Air Force in '78 and went out to Mojave Airfield there, worked for a civilian contractor out there in flight test, but just shortly into retirement, he died in 1982 of skin cancer. But he had become a colonel in the Air Force. He had become a fellow in the Society of Experimental Test Pilots, which is the highest level of competency you can achieve. So he went from somebody who had terrible eyesight, had a very difficult time even getting in the Air Force, to become a very interesting and experienced and exceptional test pilot. And the nice thing about it is he would spend time with a very junior pilot, just talking about piloting things and talking about the challenges that he faced. Anyway, that's the story of Ted Sturmthal. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.